When are you going to stop doing all the things in your business that don't make you money? When are you finally going to do what everyone's been telling you to do, which is hire a virtual assistant to create freedom and focus on the things that you love about your business? Hey guys, welcome in. I'm Kyle Stanley. You're listening to The Fearless Investor. And please do me a favor, stop right now and go onto the podcast, rate and review us. We need more stars. We need more 5-star ratings. We need more 5-star reviews. And we would love if you just took one moment to please do that. If you feel like you've gotten any value from this show, we have hundreds of listeners. Would love to be able to hear from just a few of you of what you are doing. So please take 1 second, pause right now, go onto the podcast, rate and review 5 stars. I'll give you a second. Okay, and there's your second. All right, thanks for doing that. And now let me ask you a question. What do you do in your business that takes up a lot of your time but doesn't make you any money? Administrative work, payroll, all these things that we know that we need to get done, they're important. And at some level, they're urgent, but are they important to our bottom line? And most of the time, the answer to that, I'm sure you're answering right now in your head, is no. But how do you trust someone? How do you delegate that? And how do you let go of that control? Well, virtual assistants are a great way. And Amy Ransdell of Reva Global, which stands for Real Estate Virtual Assistants, she is running a company that is high level virtual assistants for really just the real estate world. And think about that. If you've already got something that you're doing, let's call it wholesaling, and you need a cold caller and you're struggling to find them, you're going to the Philippines, you're going into upwork.com, you're going to these places and you're feeling like you have to train everyone. What if it was hand delivered to you, trained already? That's the power of what Amy is going to share with you today. And that, my friends, is true freedom in your business. So let's get to it with Amy Ransdell of Reva Global. Hey, everyone. Welcome into the Fearless Investor Podcast. And we are with the wonderful Amy Ransdell today, who is the CMO of Reva Global. She's also a real estate broker and a real estate investor. But Reva Global is what we're excited to talk about today. And we're talking about how to save time so you can focus on the money-making activities of your business. And Amy's going to talk about just that. But Amy, first of all, welcome to the show. Thanks for being on.
Yeah, no, thank you. I'm really excited to be here. I appreciate it.
Awesome. Yeah. So first of all, what is your most interesting, weirdest, strangest investing story in your years of investing here in real estate?
Most strangest, craziest. Wow, there's so many. I've been doing this for a long time, since 2001, which still blows my own mind when I say that out loud. Oh, wow, what popped in my head first? So the most probably craziest, most recently, we had a house that we it took 17 dumpsters to get the stuff out of the house before we
17.
yes, before we could even start renovating it. And we found multiple families of possums living in the house.
Oh,
So it's rather interesting. It's kind of, I don't know why that popped in my head. But yeah, that one. And then I have one other one that totally grabbed me because somebody asked me last night. We had a short sale brought to us. Somebody wanted to short sale the property, and they had done a cash out refi back in the old crash of 2008.
okay.
And there was literally no house there. So the
What?
bank gave them a cash out refi on a house that didn't exist. Yeah.
What?
Yeah.
Was there no appraisal?
Oh yeah, they did an appraisal, but that was not necessarily a above board appraisal. I'll put it that way.
Oh my gosh. Wow.
Uh,
Well, I'm just still stuck on the 17 dumpsters. The worst one I've had so far was like 3.5, and I thought that was bad.
Yeah, no, this was bad. And we really honestly didn't budget enough. Like, we tried to project what we thought it would be, but yeah, crazy.
Wow. Okay. Well, hey, that's the fun stuff. On to the getting to know you. I want to know, who is Amy? You're in Atlanta, Georgia, but what brought you into real estate investing? And essentially, like, what's driving the passion today? It's we're talking about virtual assistants today is really the exciting thing, I think, right now. And it's like you said before we got on here, that sounds boring. It's really not boring. Like, if you can have something in your hands that can streamline your business so you can focus on money-making activities, the things that you love, like, that's exciting for me. So I'm very excited to talk about this subject today. But tell us about Amy.
Okay, so really brief. I'm an accidental investor. So it wasn't my goal. I always tell people I was a biochem major who got an art degree, and that alone should explain how crazy my brain is made. And I love both. But Married a gentleman who loved real estate as a hobby and was spending a lot of money on all these classes and boot camps and products and stuff. And he wasn't actually really doing anything with it. And I'm type A and OC, and I was like, like I'm going to learn this. I'm taking over. And
Nice.
so I did. I got the bug. And then about halfway through, about the 9-year mark, I decided to get my license. And then I went all the way with that and built an entrepreneurial arm that way as a brokerage. So I'm all of those things together. I am a broker who holds a license, who actively invests, and I have a brokerage full of agents who actively invest for themselves. And it's really, really cool. But if I were to boil all that down as someone who's also coached throughout all those years and traveled and taught what I do, that's really what I love. My passion, Amy, what she's built to do is I love to help others thrive. And so everything that we create around here, that's our core value statement. That's our core value filter. Will this help people thrive? Will this make their businesses stronger? And if it will, then we do it.
That's awesome. Well, I think that's what you got to be passionate about, because if you're going to work with people, you're not passionate about teaching them something, then you can only go so far with teaching something that you're not passionate about. So what kind, I know that's not really the focus today, but what kind of things were you teaching? What kinds of exit strategies? How were you helping people? Or if you still are, how are you doing that today?
Yeah, so well, how do I put this? I'm an encyclopedia of real estate. I mean, when
Okay.
it comes to strategies or ideas or concepts, that's all there. That's information, that's knowledge, and a lot of that can be found, right? But really what most people really need is someone to help them determine the right path for them, for their set of goals, their wants, desires, their strengths and weaknesses, their experiences, what they have to work with in the resource department, money, manpower, time, and energy, right? And helping them figure out what's the right path for them in the investment world that matches where they're trying to go with what they have. That's realistic, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so for some people, they need to learn creative deal structuring. They need to learn how to buy owner finance properties and subject to acquisitions. And for some people, they have a lot of cash and great credit to leverage, and they can go buy a rental portfolio right away. I mean, it really comes down to matching what matches a person and their
Yes.
goals. Yeah.
Absolutely. That's awesome. That's awesome. Well, so now let's really kind of transition here and talk about virtual assistants. So I'm assuming you didn't just fall into virtual assistants and being a part of this company. You probably, well, you must have seen like virtual assistants start to change your company. Like, how did you get into this?
Yeah. So the CEO, Bob LaChance, he and I have been working with as coaches and educators for years and years and years. Like we literally at the point when Reva Global was founded had worked with a couple thousand people. And so a common thread always was that they wanted to scale, they wanted to get more efficient. We'd have them read the E-Myth and they'd be like, oh, I'm a failure in the E-Myth world. I've got to take things off my plate, right? Okay, so one of the things we would do is we would walk them through exercises to become more efficient. And one of those is that helping them be willing to outsource, right? And so we would
Mm-hmm.
tell them, go hire a VA for that, or go hire a virtual assistant. And they would, and then they would come back with all of these challenges, like, I couldn't find the right one. I didn't know how to hire one. I didn't know what to have them do. I didn't know how to select one. There was just a million challenges that would come back. And so we're like, okay, well, we have a need. What's all great businesses built on? You find a need and you create the solution. We don't sell products, we sell solutions, right? And so we
Mm-hmm.
saw this huge need in the marketplace for well-trained, dedicated virtual assistants that understood real estate. And that's how it was born. So Reva Global has started there. Now, since then, we've expanded. We even have a medical division. We now provide solutions for even doctors and entrepreneurs in other capacities. But that's how
That's
she was born.
awesome. That's awesome. Very cool. So, when is the right time to really get a virtual assistant? I think that's the struggle that people have is like, oh, I'm barely making any money. And now, yeah, I'm pressed for time, but at the same time, like I'm not even making enough to keep the lights on at my house. And so like, how am I supposed to convince myself to actually get a virtual assistant? When do you think is that time that people are supposed to actually dive in and do that?
Wow. Okay. So there's like a lot of factors there, but I will say one thing right away. A mindset shift that has to happen in order to hire one is you can't look at hiring a virtual assistant as an expense.
Yeah.
it is an investment into your business. And so that's the first thing. Immediately change your language and how you frame that, because then you'll see solutions to how to have a VA work with you. You'll see them better than you'll see the reasons why you shouldn't. And so that's the first thing. I'd have to, if someone came to me like that, I'd have to turn them around a little 180 degree with them and say, okay, we're going to look at this differently. I think the other questions to ask yourself, if you really are very clear on your intent and your direction of where you're trying to go, and if that's rock solid, then ask yourself some tough questions like, what do I want to net per year in my investment business? Okay, well, if you know what that is, boil that backwards into, if you worked 48 weeks out of a 52-week year and you worked a certain number of hours per week towards that goal, what does that come down to as an hourly rate? And for a lot of people, it's usually a high dollar amount, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then I say, okay, cool. Now set that to the side for a second and let's look at your time management. Tell me everything you did today. And they do that. And like over 90% of the tasks that they did were $10 an hour type tasks. I'm like, okay, dude, listen, you're going to have a $10 an hour looking bank account, not this one, right?
Yep.
So that's one big thing, is just being very gutturally honest with yourself about what are you spending your time on. And 90% of what we do can be done by phone and computer. So that means a lot of stuff could be given to someone else. And I think if I added one extra layer, I always tell people, what do you seem to procrastinate on? What is not yours? We work to our strengths, not our weaknesses. What are your weaknesses? What do you tend to not do well or you don't look forward to doing? Those are also indicators of something you should probably outsource.
I'm so happy to hear you say that, because that's exactly what I was going to say if you had not said it, because that was really the eye opener for me, was like, okay, I'm making, let's call it $100 an hour when I'm doing money making activities.
Yeah.
But how often was I really doing money making activities? And I'm going back to, like Airbnb was the main thing that I was able to use virtual assistants for, and assistants overall. That would allow me the time freedom. Now, today, I tell a lot of my audience, I work 1 to 2 hours per week on managing my Airbnbs. And I used to work 20, 30 hours on that every week. But then when I realized that I could outsource that for, let's call it $20 an hour, and then focus on these $100 per hour money-making activities, yes, it's an investment. It's not an expense. I wasn't losing $20. I was gaining all that ability to have more time to put in those $100 per hour hours.
Some people don't know. Well, so I say this too, what is your highest, most revenue generating activity?
Mm-hmm.
And what are the activities that you in your company, it has to be you that does it.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And whatever those two things are, that's all you should be doing. And the more you can create time to do more of that, I mean, my goodness, you talk about scale, right? Yep. And you, or don't scale and have more time to go on vacation and spend with your family. Like, for everybody that's different, but we all would love to have more time freedom. So that accomplishes that. Make more with the time you spend.
So you're having a lot of conversations with investors and real estate investors about where they're putting their time. I'm gathering that. Am I right?
Oh yeah.
Where do you feel like the majority of time is being put for these investors, that when they actually implement that virtual assistant and have them do it? I'm looking for maybe like 1 or 2 areas of their business that it's like light bulb, like, oh my gosh, I wish I would have done this 5 years ago.
Ooh,
yeah. I know, tough question.
No, well, okay, so 2 things immediately jumped in my head. One of them isn't necessarily, I think one of them is a little bit categorically different than what you just kind of described, but I think it's important. First thing is a lot of admin stuff. There's so much admin stuff that you guys keep doing. Paperwork, inbound calls, bookkeeping, some social media management, the content creation, like all those things that just eat up your day. I've watched investors spend a half a day trying to write an article because some guru coach told them they had to put new articles on their website every week. And like, they spent a half a day doing that. I'm like, but if you made 5 offers on properties today, you'd have a wholesale deal that would make you 10 grand. And you spent half a day writing an article. Hold on. Our virtual assistant can do that. So a lot of the stuff on the admin side, and we have a big checklist we provide our clients that helps them kind of brainstorm through all the things they could outsource. But on the other side, I mean, like, this is huge. This is one of my biggest pet peeves too. We have to be doing lead generation. We're on the phone. We have to be on the phone all the time. But you ask the average investor how many hours that day they spent on the phone prospecting, whether it's prospecting sellers, contractors, or prospecting tenants, or prospecting buyers for their buyers list if they're a wholesaler. And if you ask them, they will tell you it's a tiny amount of their day, yet
Mhm.
that's the most important thing they do. And even more important, doing follow-up calls to the leads that they prospect. And 70% of your deals are going to come from that pot of gold, and
Yep.
yet they won't spend an hour doing it. And so having a VA spending all day long doing nothing but outbound prospecting and outbound follow-up is huge.
I think especially, Amy, when you have a business that has employees, if you are not outsourcing these things and it begins and ends with you,
Mm,
I'm going to just be honest. I think that's a very selfish way to run a business, because what happens is when you die, when you get injured, when you have some sort of traumatic thing happen to you, God forbid you get coronavirus, your business is done.
yeah.
And how easy is, I mean, I'll just give you a great example. When I started a podcast, I realized that, man, I'm putting in about 5 to 6 hours per week on just editing and creating show notes and doing all these things, that I was like, that's 5 hours I could be putting in offers. That's 5 hours I could be looking at properties. That's 5 hours I could be talking to landlords trying to get more Airbnb deals. And um, that right there at its core too was like, hey, if I'm always the person that has to create that content, then what happens to my business when I'm gone? What
Oh,
happens to
that's
the
huge.
relationships? It's gone. It's gone.
That is
So
so huge,
yeah,
and I love that you called that selfish, because actually that's so much what it is. And it's not just for employees, but what about your family, and what about what
yep,
other reasons you're doing this for? Yeah, you have to be able to put yourself in a position to replace yourself. You know, if everybody, all of your listeners, I know a lot of them are getting started or trying to the early part of their businesses and growing. Read the E-Myth like that right now. Go read the E-Myth. That has to be read the original, not the different versions that have come out
right.
since. Because that talks a lot about that. You have to be able to remove yourself from their business. And what better way to do that than having dedicated virtual assistants who work all day, every day, regardless of whether you're on vacation or you're sick, right?
Exactly.
The wheels still continue to turn. And so, yeah, it's a game changer if you implement it.
Absolutely. All right. So now, how is Reva Global helping people to find those virtual assistants and get matched to the right ones?
Very good question. So we actually don't, we're not like the typical virtual assistant company out there. A lot of them are what I would call warehouses of resumes. And so basically you're looking for a VA, you get into their system and you hunt through, and they do kind of match make you to an out, just a random resume. We aren't like that. At Reva Global, our virtual assistants are on staff. They are ours, and they go through a very heavy qualification process to even have to even qualify to be a Reva Global virtual assistant. And they are on our payroll. So regardless of whether we have a client to place them with, we've selected them because of their talent and their ability. So it's a very different scenario. And when you come in with us, we put you through a pretty hefty interview, the little strategy session, to really determine what the best fits for you will be, so that when we go into our pool of VAs, we're selecting the likeliest best fits for you to interview just a couple of them, saving you countless hours of going through resumes and all that kind of process.
Okay. So this is like the Tesla of VAs, you could say.
It is.
So
I like
are you gonna spend Tesla prices, or are you gonna be like for example, I know Upwork is one of them. There's a lot of ones in the Philippines, and people brag about their VAs being, as little as $3 an hour.
Oh, yes, I
You
hear it
know,
all the time.
yeah.
Um,
So how do you compete with those?
well, first of all, you should get what you pay for, right? Like we all know that, especially those of us who flip, right?
Yep,
So,
absolutely.
yeah. So we definitely are not the least expensive of what you hear out there, but here's the difference. You're going to spend countless hours going through multiple VAs on the low end and not necessarily have long-term great results and have a long-term team member of part of your family. So you'll end up at the end of the day spending just as much. Okay. So we do cost more. Our VAs on average are about $9.60 an hour for a part-time, $10.60 for a full-time, but this is somebody that you're going to have long-term, that will work for your company, dedicated for you, which is the other part of that. When you find out about 3-hour, 4-hour, 5-hour VAs, a lot of times those VAs are also juggling multiple clients.
Mhm.
And so they're moonlighting for anybody and everybody that's willing to pay them $3 an hour, so that ultimately they're making a lot more than that. And the challenge for you as a client is that now you're competing for their focused energy and time to be focused on your projects. Our VAs are dedicated to our clients. We don't allow them to moonlight. And you're not getting a single VA, you're actually getting a team, because behind the VA that's assigned to you, we provide quality managers, operations managers, and basically coaches for the VAs so that they're constantly being engaged with and enriched in their daily job, making sure that you're engaging well with them, they're engaging well with you, and helping them get stronger at their position.
Yeah, I just want to put this in perspective for people that are listening right now, because I've had VAs that have stuck and have been really good, and I've had VAs that have been on the other side, just like what you're talking about, where I've had to shop through. I have another guy in my office who is a wholesaler, and he has VAs. And, you know, at the end of the day, like someone like that who has VAs that are calling sellers and making sometimes as much as 1,000 calls per day, if you have the wrong person on the phone making those calls, that's 1,000 people that just got a real bad first impression from your company. And
Ooh.
that's really like, that can be the difference between getting 0 deals or 10 deals. And so is an extra $4 an hour worth it to get an extra 10 deals? Like, to me, absolutely yes. And then on the other side, like for me, I went in terms of video editing and podcast editing and getting all of this admin stuff put to the side. I spent probably just as much time with a couple of the VAs that I was testing out, teaching them how to do what I wanted them to do, rather than getting an already ready to go person who, and I wasted a lot of time. So luckily I did find the right guy, but it took me a lot of time, rather than just maybe streamlining it to someone like you and finding that right away and not having to be the interviewer and teaching them all these things. They get to adopt it right away. So am I evaluating that correctly?
You are. And so the cool thing too with us, so I call us like we're the match.com for VAs, right? So, you know, I've hired a matchmaker in my life, and I did it on purpose for the same reason that people come to us for VAs. Like we go through the pool for you. So we do have you interview 2 or 3 VAs that we believe will fit, but we interview you first. We even put our virtual assistants through not only a ton of pre-training that they have to pass before we can allow them to be placed with people, which includes American culture and real estate terminology and all kinds of the basic platforms that a lot of us use. But we also personality test them. This is important because you mentioned the cold calling thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
If I'm going to have an outbound VA on the phone, I want to know that they're the right personality for being on the phone. It's usually somebody with a high D, high I disc profile. I also want to make sure that they have strong language proficiency, right? So if you go through the interview process with them, we ask you that, you know, are you going to have them be on the phone? What do you want the VA to do? Because if you don't care about language proficiency, well, great. If you just have a lot of, you know, property research to do, offers to write, Excel data type stuff to work with, well, I can give you a VA that doesn't have great language proficiency, but it's brilliant to work with you. Whereas if I'm going to put you on the phone or somebody on the phone, then they need to be the right personality for that. So they'll stick with it and they'll enjoy it and they'll thrive at it and they'll want to get better at it. And so, you know, you got to make sure you say that in the process.
That's so awesome. Well, Amy, thank you so much for joining us today. I feel like this has been a very clear message of why VAs are so important in a business that wants to grow and thrive. Is there anything else you'd like to add in before we log off here? And especially, how do people connect with you? I don't want to miss that.
Yeah, so I'll make it really simple. I'm going to give you 2 things. One is you can go to our website, revaglobal.com. It's REVA, stands for Real Estate Virtual Assistant, global.com. And when you get there, there'll be all kinds of pop-ups and online chat box that pops up and all kinds of things. So it's almost nearly impossible not to reach somebody on the team if you want to find out more information. We've done a lot of different podcasts and different things on there, so you can listen to other types of content to help you decide. And then the other way is that you're welcome to email me directly. It's Amy, AMY, at revaglobal.com. I have a team member. I do have a virtual assistant who helps me reply to things. And of course, if you find me on social media, that would be a blast as well. We do a lot of really cool things, so check me out on social media. But you can email me directly. You can go to our website, and somebody will help you right away.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Amy, for helping our audience to conquer the world of investing. We appreciate you being on.
I love it. Thank you so much for having me.
All right. As always, if you want to get the show notes for this one, it's just fearlesskyle.com/Amy, AMY. And you can check out all those resources that Amy was talking about. And if you want to get expedited and just be able to go straight to the source of finding a great virtual assistant match for you, all you got to do is go to those show notes and we will have the links right there for you. So what's stopping you? What are you waiting for to finally have freedom in your business and not have to do all that paperwork, not have to do all of that cold calling, not have to do all of that lead gathering and data analysis and data entry? Get a virtual assistant. Do it now. Your time is worth much more than $10 to $12 an hour, which is really what you should be paying for a virtual assistant. So make sure you go and check out those resources with Amy and continue to conquer the world of investing here on The Fearless Investor. We'll talk to you soon.